Good afternoon, everyone. I now recognise that I'm between you and Alan's demonstration, so I'll try and make this as engaging as possible. Really looking forward to spending the next 18 minutes or so, or slightly shorter, talking to you about whether you're serious about performance or not. And I'd like you to keep asking yourself the question as I go through the talk to see, are you actually serious about performance? Because many people claim that they are serious about their performance, the performance of other people who they're working with, or perhaps the performance of their organisation. In all the work that I do, both as a psychologist in sport, which I've done for the last 15 years very proudly with the Great Britain rowing team, and also in the world of business, it's very clear that high performance is something that is sought after. But there are a few issues with high performance as an aim. And I'd like to present to you some of the challenges that I think are worth thinking through, just for you to be able to ask the question, are you serious about performance, and what can you learn from perhaps the way the Olympians go about preparing for performance, and how does that translate into the wider arena of human performance? This is all about developing human potential, and I think hopefully I'll stimulate a bit of thinking for you to just check in with whether you're both mentally serious about performance, or are you behaving in a way that also demonstrates that you're serious about performance. So my first point I'd like to raise to you is that when we actually talk to people about performance, and perhaps I go into an organisation and ask for a definition of what is performance, one of the issues that you come up with straight away is that there is very poor understanding and definition and shared understanding of what the word performance means within an organisation that is perhaps striving for high performance. Typically, you'll ask, please, can you define performance for me? The majority of the answers that you get translate into results. So performance equals results. So if I'm working in your organisation and someone walks up to you in the corridor and they says, how's your performance this month? They don't mean performance. They mean, what results have you delivered recently? You know your goals that have been set for you? How are you doing against those goals? Walk into the world of elite sport and you ask an athlete, how's your performance this month? They'll give you a very different answer. They know the question means, how's your performance? How are the components, your ingredients that are going to lead to success? How are they developing at the moment? What are those things looking like? How well are they coming together? How are they moving on? The definition of performance is absolutely key, that if you want to aspire to achieve high performance, make sure that everybody understands that performance actually means doing the things that you need to do in order to get the things that you want. Performance is a balance of both input to achieve output. It's not just output alone. But if you are interpreting the word performance as results, you're missing an opportunity to find out how much potential you've got and how you would go about developing that so that you can have more control over delivering your results. And that's what the world of sport does so well, where they actually work every single day to enhance their ability to deliver a performance which maximises the chance of getting the results. It's a lucky world for them. They train 90% of the time and compete 10% of the time. So they do work on performance development. But they are going home at the end of every day thinking, what have I done today to improve my performance and my capability? They're not going home like you do in the corporate world and think, what did I get done today? How far through my to-do list did I get? We've got a difference there just in terms of performance driving certain behaviours and attitudes. But that whole performance piece is critical. How clearly is it defined? How clearly do people understand it? Because if we don't have a shared view of what performance actually means, how can we collectively strive for high performance when we're just thinking about results? All we get good at is having conversations about whether a goal has been hit or not. We don't get good conversations about how effectively we may have gone about producing that performance. So the message here is, if you want to be great and serious about performance, own that word and make sure that whenever someone uses that word with you, you interact with them in a way that demonstrates that you're working both on the inputs and the outputs, that you've got an equal measure of focus and you're not just obsessing about the results. Because if we only obsess about the results, we know that there's a whole load of different thoughts, feelings and actions that go with that. Get the balance. It's very interesting as well, because if you don't define performance as a balance between inputs and outputs, how do you go about developing people? So I quite like playing with the idea that if we've got the corporate definition of performance and I transfer that into the world of sport, I could take you to the Carrington training ground at Manchester United, where Alex Ferguson is going to carry out a training session with some of his players using the typical approach to development of performance in the corporate arena. So Mr. Ferguson's going to call Wayne Rooney over. Wayne, we're going to have a coaching session here. Wayne, right, let's get this clear. I need 3 goals from you at the weekend. I need 1 with your head. I definitely need 1 from outside the box. And if I could get 2 just after half-time in the 3rd quarter of the game, the board say that's really good. So you're clear, Wayne. 3 goals, 1 with your head, 1 from outside the box, but 2 just after half-time. I need you also, Wayne, to run 8.5 kilometres. I also need you, Wayne, to make sure that you've got 85% pass completion. You need to tackle back in your own half on 13 occasions. Are you clear, Wayne? Are you getting this coaching session? Meanwhile, Rooney is just... Gaffer, I want to go and practice. I want to go and practice. What are we talking about this for? But fast forward to Saturday, Ferguson's on the sideline. Wayne, you haven't scored yet. Come on, Wayne. I've said you needed a goal by now. We need 1 in the first half. Come on, you haven't tackled enough. Wayne, I've got your stats here and the time's running out. You really need to get on this thing. Rooney's going, what? Just let me play the game. You don't coach sport like that. You don't develop performance like that in the world of sport. You don't give people instruction of what they need to be achieving in the world of sport. Unless it's cricket. And then you go, I'd like a wide on the 3rd ball. Can you concede 10 runs to me off the first over? But isn't that interesting? When that kind of approach works in sport, it's when corruption is present. I start incentivising people to do behaviours and I start manipulating them by introducing money. So we see in sport that actually the way in which you are rewarded in the business world only exists when corruption is present. I'll leave you to draw your own conclusions on that. But that whole piece is essential there, just in terms of if we want to develop performance, let's coach people around how to get better at what they do, not help them become superb at obsessing on whether they've got the result or not. But that whole piece is absolutely essential as well. So how well are you seeking out the kind of coaching that will help you get better? How well are you having conversations that get a balance between input and output? Because if you're serious about performance, you'll want more of those balanced conversations and less of the ones that demonstrate that you can regurgitate numbers to people. Absolutely essential that we really start thinking through the further implications, that if we don't define performance clearly, what else happens? Well, if we don't define performance clearly and we don't really understand what high performance means, we might end up in a world where you only ever get performance management where you've been bad enough for long enough to warrant it. That would never happen, would it? Oh, they've been so mediocre for a long time, we'd better put them on a performance improvement plan. Madness. What kind of organisation would you walk into where you only get a performance improvement plan when you've been bad enough to warrant it? If you're serious about performance, you will be expecting a performance improvement plan the minute you walk in to help you fulfil your potential rather than have it. This is all about fulfilling potential, not just possessing it. So a performance management approach is one that should exist every single day, and it is something that I, as the performer, should be in control of. How much am I going and seeking the kind of performance improvement that I think is warranted because of the role that I play? Have I got the opportunity to go and connect and network with the key people who I know can make a difference to help me improve my performance? Am I waiting for a performance improvement plan to be given to me, or am I actually proactively looking to manage my own performance on a day-to-day basis and develop it? What's the balance for you? Are you serious about performance? Do you wait for your annual performance review to come around? That's a commitment to performance, isn't it? An annual performance review. Once every 12 months, we get to have a conversation about performance. That's not being serious about performance. That's playing lip service to a process. If you're serious about performance, we are having performance conversations on a day-to-day basis to find out how we can keep improving things, how we can keep moving things forward. And when it comes to a formal meeting about what that's all added up to, that just becomes a summation of all of those previous conversations that we've had. Because if you're serious about performance, you're seeking feedback out regularly. You're going out and finding out how you're doing against the criteria that are important to you. If you're not serious about performance, you end up in a situation where feedback is actually a euphemism for criticism. Come here, I've got some feedback for you. You know that's not going to be a good conversation, don't you? Yep. But if you're serious about performance, you're absolutely seeking the feedback regularly to help you get better at what you do. The rowers who I work with on a day-to-day basis, when they're out on the water, they are getting some form of feedback every 90 seconds. Whether it's data from the onboard feedback systems, whether it's input from the coach. Now, they've got to become expert at filtering that, and then they've got feedback at the end of the session as to what the quality was, but they're also seeking the feedback that's relevant to them. And with 147 days to go to the start of the Olympic Games, every bit of feedback is competitive advantage. And if they don't seek it out, someone else will seek it out and potentially take advantage. 147 days to go. 147 opportunities to keep getting better. Not that anyone's counting. But the whole piece there, are you serious about performance in terms of the way that you're interacting around performance feedback and your own performance plan? Another piece of evidence, look at the typical things that come out of a performance review. What do you leave the room with? Typically, you are far more expert in what you're not good enough at. Yep. Thank you. That was a very uplifting period of my life. I've now walked out of the room fully aware of the things that have been holding me back all this time. Imagine Olympic athletes sitting on the start line of the coming games, and they are fully aware of everything that they're not good enough at. I don't think we're going to get very many superb performances when they're going out, working out which weaknesses need to be avoided first, quickly followed up by the other weakness, which mustn't come on the back of that. Yeah? If you're serious about performance, you'll absolutely look at some of those limitations, but not until you've identified all of your strengths and you've challenged yourself to find out how you might make those strengths stronger and brought them in more consistently and deliberately to your performance. And then when you're superb at developing and exploiting your strengths, you can get some real value by looking at some of the noise that exists within the system. But if you're serious about performance, you will be able to list your strengths and the qualities that you bring to any team that you're part of just as quickly as you might be able to identify any weaknesses. Because if all you do is know about your weaknesses, you are just superb at making sure you don't have a bad day. How's your day at work today? Oh, it was not bad. I made sure it wasn't bad because I knew all of my weaknesses to avoid. It doesn't open up that possibility of finding out how good you can be. So keep checking. Are you serious about performance? Does the way in which you think about yourself as a performer, the balance between strengths and weaknesses, does that back up whether you're serious about performance or not? That whole balance is critical. We also know as well, when we look at performance and some of the important factors that are party to performance, attitude is a critical influence upon how successfully we have performed. If you were serious about performance, when you've got to the end of something, the first thing that you would do is you would look back and say, when I got presented with this opportunity, what was my attitude towards this whole journey? The first thing you would look at is what was my attitude, because that attitude is going to very strongly influence the behaviours that follow afterwards, the degree of commitment, the degree of persistence that you have through that entire course of the project. If you don't review the attitude first and you cut straight to the results, you don't learn sufficiently to move forward to get greater control over the next performance. So being honest about the attitude that you've got and trying to get ever better at choosing your attitude to optimise the chances of success, which come from recognising the feelings so that you can think appropriately to choose your attitude. But if you're serious about performance, you will practice choosing your attitude where you need to. And some of you are going, well, I have to choose my attitude. Yeah, so choose your attitude towards choosing your attitude. And then you get a spiral of death. Oh, no. So now I've got to choose my attitude. Oh, no, there we go. But anyway, so choose your attitude. How effectively can you do that? And how effectively can you keep role modelling that attitude through the course of any challenges that you're facing. But if you're serious about performance, choosing your own attitude, trying to influence the attitude of others as effectively as possible, would be a critical part of the performance. And what this all starts to add up to is that if you're serious about performance, you'll start to prepare holistically. You'll start to see yourself as a performer in the round, that if you are going to fulfill potential rather than just have it, you will make sure that you are technically as prepared to perform as possible. All of your technical skills, the fundamentals, the things that you might take for granted, you've made sure that they are superbly honed. The elite athletes spend hours and hours and hours working on the fundamentals technically, but they know that's a critical part of being serious about performance. I never take it for granted just because I'm a world champion already that this particular bit of my performance is good enough. So be superb at the technical piece and practice the tactical piece. Without those two things, there's no point even going into the performance scenario. But if you're serious about performance, you will make sure that you are adding the other resource in here, which we know makes a critical difference to how capable you are of stepping up and delivering and getting the kind of results that you know you're capable of. If you're serious about performance, you'll look at how physically prepared am I for this? Really getting in touch with your body and making sure that you understand how your body needs to be prepared. But even on the most rudimentary level of making sure that you're hydrated, you've got good rest and recovery and a good nutrition, makes a difference to how effectively you can perform. If you're serious about performance, it would show in your attitude towards preparing your body. If you're serious about performance, you prepare your mind. You make sure that you are choosing your attitude, understanding how you need to think, reading your own personality and making sure you know how to get the most out of yourself. Emotionally, you'd be drawing on support because you know when key people pay an interest in what you're doing and how you're doing it, there's more resource and there's more likelihood that you are going to put in a great performance. And you'd make sure that you had the context fully understood as well. How is the environment helping me get ready to perform? The physical environment as well as the people environment. Because if you're serious about performance, it becomes a holistic preparation challenge. And then when you've completed your performance, you can go back and review how full was my preparation pie and how effectively did I deploy it. And that's when, rather than just having potential, you start to consistently exploit it. So, are you serious about performance? Thank you.